We're going to focus today. We've got two presentations throughout the week, one today and one tomorrow. Today we're going to focus more on the topic of how in your digital presence you can encourage more people that visit your site to actually complete the journey that they started, whether that's to donate, to express their interest, to support you in some way, or if you're a charity that sells anything in your web presence, how you can encourage those visitors to complete that journey. Now, this is a conference that's talking about a whole host of different issues. And as Pete set out, we're really proud to be a commercial sponsor of the conference. And we hope in some small way we can allow, events like this, important events like this to take place. So unashamedly, underpinning what Stuart and I are going to talk about today are things that you can buy, but we're going to try really hard to talk about some of the best practices that we've learned with the customers and the not-for-profits that we work with, both here in the UK, but also globally, and just share some of the learnings that either we've learned through just hard experience, working closely with those organisations, some research that we've engaged in just recently about the UK charitable sector, and share some of those things with you, at the end of which, if you'd like to have a conversation with us about how we can help you, then of course we'd be delighted to do that. But if you think we're going too commercial, put it in the chat pod and we'll drag it back to talking about best practice. So I've been with GBG, which is the parent company of Locate, for about the last 8 years. And as Pete said, I've worked around this sort of location intelligence space for the last 22 years. And as such, hopefully I've got a few things that I can talk about with you. So we'd like to start with just to canvass a little bit of your opinion. So if you're a charity that has an online presence and you're trying to determine, how successful that is, we just want to ask that question before we get started. How confident are you that your website is optimized to meet the expectations? I've said supporters, but it could be anyone that visits your site that you're asking them to do something. How confident are you that your website's optimized to meet those expectations? So whether you've got no idea, you're not confident, it's pretty good, acceptable, you're fairly confident, or you're totally confident. If you'd like to just, when the poll comes up, share with us how you feel about your web presence and its effectiveness. That's going to help us to just tailor what we talk about perhaps throughout the course of the next few minutes. So I think you can go ahead and do that now until Pete says we've got enough. All right, Pete, you gonna tell me? Yeah, we're done. Okay. All right, well, thank you for your responses. And while they're up on my screen, I'm not sure if everyone can see those. We've got quite a strong leaning towards not feeling too confident or not feeling confident at all in the language that I used. About a quarter of you think it's okay, and that's really good news that around a quarter of you on the webinar today feel that you've made some of the right steps towards creating a good optimized experience online. And about another third almost that are feeling fairly confident. So that's great news that a lot of you have made some confident and positive steps to optimizing your online presence. So perhaps we'll talk a little bit towards those who are not confident at all, but also just share with you some of the things that even those of you that are confident, you might be able to just even improve further that online experience. So we can close that down now, I think, Pete, there we go. For some reason, there we are. Just ever so quickly, Locate, if you've not heard of us, we are a location technology brand of a company called GBG. GBG is probably one of the biggest technology companies you've probably never heard of. We're a UK listed and headquartered tech company, but we've got operations in about 14 countries. But Locate is just that really simple bit of tech that sits at the checkout or the registration page of a website, and at the point where you ask your whoever it is that's visited to give you either their address, their mobile number, their email address, all those really critical bits of contact information. We've got some really clever widgets to make that process quick, easy, and convenient, but ultimately to leave you as the organization with accurate data that you can now use, both to interact with your supporters or donors, but also to understand them more and to be able to engage more effectively with accurate data. We do it with lots of organizations. There'll be lots of experts in the charity sector at this event, and I wouldn't actually say that I was one of them, so please don't leave. But what we are going to do is to bring some of our learnings from the commercial world when it comes to what it means to take a potential customer and to get them to complete an online journey. Thinking about customers in a commercial setting are ultimately the same people that you might have on your website looking to either donate or to get involved with your charitable organisations. So what we do a lot of, and we've got quite a lot of combined experience. Every commercial organisation has the logo page. Here's just a few to share with you. Right-hand column just gives you a sense of some of the charities that we deal with. And we're proud, very proud to deal with charities, big and small, doing work at a national, even global level, but also grassroots organisations that are doing such amazing work, perhaps often unseen in their local communities. So our mission, if we talk about our kind of North Star, we say our mission is to help every business in the world reach every customer in the world. Well, that tells you what we do globally. Bring it into the context of what we're talking about today. Well, we can say our mission would include helping not-for-profits, charitable organisations to reach or to connect with every potential supporter. And to do that, you want to make it easy to connect with those potential supporters or even existing ones. And the best time to do that perhaps is when they've made the effort to come and find you. They're on your website. What can you do to help them to complete either a registration or some other process, perhaps a donation or otherwise? So in advance of this event, we ran some specific research around donating habits in the UK. We used a research organisation to help us. So it was a number of UK citizens who expressed that they were, regular donators to charities. And we just picked out 3 of the questions, and there's 8 or 9 other questions that we asked, but 3 of them actually helped me to kind of understand what some of the challenges might be in a sector which, at a macro level, as I've observed what's being said out of the charity sector in the UK, obviously there's been a huge amount of pressure on donations, cash flows reduced, the way in which you can get out into your communities to do your normal fundraising. So just going from left to right, the first question, since the first lockdown, how have you changed, or have you changed how much you donate? Perhaps no surprise to some of you that quite a large number, 27%, it's less or stopped altogether. A relatively small number, but perhaps the most important ones from your perspective, are donating more, but a reasonably solid middle section who are not changing their habits. So I guess that's what's causing some of the issues, isn't it, in terms of that sustainable and predictable donation stream, is understanding what the sentiment is of your supporters and whether they'll continue to maintain their behaviours or to change those. Going to the second question, what size of charities are you more inclined to donate to? Again, I was interested in these numbers and interested to see whether or not you think that bears out your own experience. Approaching half supporting, by inclination, smaller local charities, 28% almost smaller national charities, and then about a quarter who are focusing on larger national charities. I'm going to come back to that just in a minute, because there's a few things that we can just derive from these 3 bits of research. The third question being, if you're donating, what would your preferred method be? Whilst I'll tell you now, I do know that those 2 numbers don't add up to 100. There were some other options, but the 2 we drew out were 35% happy online, but still almost the same would prefer to be donating in cash. And when we think about all the things that have been restricted during lockdowns, being able to have that sort of one-to-one interaction with donors in order to receive cash donations obviously has been significantly impacted. So I'll tell you what these questions tell me, or what some of the opportunities are. If I think about the middle question about the size of charities, we often think about technology as being an enabler. And yet for a long time, the sort of technology that could help organizations to connect and to convert new customers, that technology was only available to the largest organizations who had the deepest pockets. And we might say within the charitable sector, larger national charities may well at times have the deepest pockets. The good news is, as we get to 2020 and looking forward, some of the most powerful software to help you run really effective online operations, there's been a real democratization to use that buzzword of technology, so that the very smallest organizations can now interact and to consume really powerful technology, whether it's to host, whether it's to manage the build of the website, and whether it's to optimize conversions and what we might call checkouts or registrations. Some of that will include really slick payment type technology that's just as available now to a 5-person organization as it is to a global enterprise. Capturing addresses using simple single line type ahead technology. It drives conversions. That used to be the preserve of large organizations, and now that can be consumed and used by the very smallest. So that's something that we've been really excited about, that democratization of technology. So charities that are operating at a relatively small level can now enjoy those same technology advantages. And of course, if over a third of people would rather be donating online, you want to make it easy for them and ensure that the majority that start that journey complete it and then are able to express their wish to your organization. Because in our commercial lives, when we're out buying stuff online, the research tells us this, is that we all want a really smooth and slick experience. We want it to be fast, frictionless, trustworthy, and secure. And I would argue the same things are true within the charitable space. Now, on our platform, we work with many charities, and just to share, this is pretty raw data. I won't spend too long interpreting it, but really since the beginning of the year, this just sort of shows the general up and downs of charities that are using our service, so that at the point where somebody is entering their address or an email address or a mobile number and they're verifying that through the locate service, how many are we seeing? What's the trend line? We can kind of see around the first lockdown, which was sort of middle of March, we did see a spike. Actually, charities that we serve saw increased traffic in the early days of lockdown. Obviously, there's been some dips and some increases. But actually, the line throughout the year, as we've observed it, is there's been greater online activity through the charities that we serve. Not forgetting, and as I say, I made the point that at a macro level, it's clear that many charities have experienced shortfalls in donations, perhaps by virtue of not being able to have those in-person interactions with donors and with people that are helping you to raise money. But actually online, it gives a little bit of confidence, I would argue, that there is a slightly upward curve, so that those charities that are online and offering a really good optimized experience are converting more of those visitors to their websites. So for the next 5-10 minutes maximum, I'm just going to talk about 4 things that we think, if you take away, you might be able to look at your own online operations and maybe improve them just a little bit, if that's something that you'd like to do. So to sort of frame this, we're going to say, well, you'll be doing this each and every day, I'm sure, understanding who your supporters are. And when they come to your online presence, what type of supporter are they? And in kind of the optimizing checkout world, we talk about non-considered and considered. So somebody who visits perhaps as an impulse, maybe they've seen something on social media, they think, yeah, I'm going to do something for that organization. They arrive, they haven't given it a huge amount of pre-thought, it's non-considered, and they want to get through that process really quickly. They want zero friction. If you introduce friction, too many steps, the chances are they're going to get distracted by something else and move on to some other activity. So for those non-considered donors, you want to make the process of donating or expressing support incredibly slick. And there's obviously a number of ways in which you can do that. The more considered supporter, or maybe this is somebody who is a long-term supporter of your organization, your cause that you support, and in which case they will be more thoughtful about their interaction with you, and maybe they're actually a little bit less concerned about steps and friction because they're more of a dedicated supporter of what you do. But either way, the research bears out that in our online lives, we want things to be quick, easy, and convenient. So here's 4 things to take away, if you like. The first thing we would say is don't insist on registration. For those non-considered potential supporters and donors, make it quick. So don't require them to register, maybe to do something just one time. All the research shows if you insist on registration, where that's not truly necessary, you might want it, but it's likely you'll see a drop-off in those conversions. So provide that option to register later, but allow supporters or donors to get through and do maybe that one-time event quickly and easily. Those that are pleased with the experience, again, the research shows that they may well choose to register later on. Now, what about this one? Reducing form fields. Declutter your registration page or your donation gift aid page. Why? Well, there's a really interesting piece of research done by Baynard, who showed that the impact of too many fields is really significant. More fields increasing the probability of abandoning a registration or checkout, with over a quarter just not finishing what they started because there was too many fields to fill in. And actually the address is the real villain of the piece. So many websites have still got longhand, fill out address line 1, address line 2, city, region, postcode, so on. And you know, we're all a little bit impatient online. We want things to be quick. And therefore, the more you can do to reduce those steps, the more likely someone's going to complete their journey. And as I said that we would just briefly mention the thing that we sell, and I'll do that and keep it quick. Capture Plus from Locate is that simple piece of tech. That single line at the top right there of the screen. If you have that on your checkout page, someone that comes along and you ask them to give you their address because they need it for either the gift aid claim or for further contact, just the ability to type that into a single field and to do that really quickly and intuitively, biasing to your location so the customer feels their time is being really well respected. Because we're all, you know, we've all got fat fingers and we make mistakes online. We type the wrong thing, we put things in the wrong order. Capture Plus is designed to acknowledge those human frailties so that you don't expect your people that are on your website to do perfect things every single time. And the nice thing about Capture Plus is it allows you to tolerate some of those natural and kind of human errors, spelling errors, putting the spaces in the wrong place, mixing up words, not knowing the whole address. Things that seem really basic actually require quite a complex set of sort of technology under the surface to remediate in real time. And Capture Plus does that, as we said, for 19,000 organizations worldwide. So just two examples of charities that we work with. UNICEF and Age UK have done exactly that. So when you're about to make a donation, you've said you want to give gift aid, so you're required to give your address. They make it super simple by just giving you a single line address search field. So it drops a whole bunch of fields and you're able to get through and complete that donation and possibly then subscribe or to register there afterwards if you choose to. So there's plenty of other examples, but just a shout out to UNICEF and to Age UK for the work that they've done. Mobile first. This is something we learn in the commercial world, and I think there's every reason to believe that in the charitable space it's just as important. More than half the people that the organizations that we serve report that the majority of their customer traffic now comes from mobile devices. So ensure that your registration, your checkout, the donation page is suitable for mobile devices. Now, a mobile device, the amount of real estate on the screen is relatively small, so use that well and think carefully about how to organize the data that you're insisting on being shared with you. And then beyond that, don't assume you've got it right first time. We say all of our customers, you know, test and test again. Trial, look at UX changes, see how they're affecting conversions. And if you've learned things that are driving conversions up, obviously capture that and keep it. But if it doesn't work first time, second time, that's okay. Have that continual testing process. Whether you have that in-house, fine. If not, look for organizations that can help you to continually improve that checkout process. So the takeaways from this part of the session really, I think, would be three things. Firstly, keep it simple. If you're going to try and maximize conversion online, and we don't say conversion in a way to dehumanize the person that's converting. We respect this as a person who may well be offering you their support, donating money, or in some other way looking for engagement. So we're not converting them in some sort of cynical way, but just to help them to complete the journey that they've started. Keep it simple, not always insisting on registration up front, offer that as an option later on. Chop out fields, have a real bonfire of the fields and just keep it really simple. As I said, the address is the real offender. If you don't have single line address capture, you've got an awful lot of address fields on that web page that need completing. And secondly, remember, maybe it's not all mobile, but it's definitely moving that way to a world where we all expect to be able to do the things that we want to do on a mobile device. So keep it simple, reduce fields, and remember to optimize the mobile experience. So that's about 20 minutes of me. We wanted just to use a little bit of this session today as well, just to pick up on some of the things we're going to talk about in tomorrow's webinar about using data compliantly to be able to continue to connect and engage with supporters, just in case you can't make tomorrow's webinar. Because of course you might think, well, we've done all this, we've got our supporters, so how can you carry on engaging with them and using data to maintain those strong links? So I think I'm going to have to drive this, Stuart, but we're going to move over and introduce Stuart Watt, who's our expert in data maintenance, using data to keep those strong links with your supporters. So I'll go on to his first slide. I think, Stu, you might have to tell me when you want to advance.
I will do. Thank you, Matt, and hello all. We wave at the start of these things now on Zoom calls, don't we? I wanted to start maybe foolishly by promoting somebody else's session. Actually, I don't know how many of you saw the Jeff Morgan session yesterday on civil society and changes and imagination. And I wanted, if you didn't see it, I highly recommend that you do on catch up. We use one of his tools that he was talking about, and imagine now that all of those things that Matt was talking about there, you've got in place, you might already, and you're providing a great supporter journey now when individuals turn up to your website. So let's think of a number. 100 people turn up to your website today and sign up for, let's say, a newsletter and make a one-off cash donation. Brilliant news. Well, what would the impact be to your organization if, let's say, in 12 months, you could only maintain contact with 80 of those individuals, and then in 2 years, 64 of them, and then in 3 years, only 51? What would the impact be to your organization if that were to happen? Well, do you know what? It probably is happening. And I'm going to explain in this sort of the next 10 minutes why that is. I also wanted to give a quick overview on what the impact might well be to your organization and what we're seeing other organizations that we work with are doing to address this. And then right at the end, what I wanted to do was share with you something that we wanted to offer you. We've created something which we think could well be of interest and could help you, all Akivo members, to address this. So that's what we're going to go through. So you can only maintain contact with 50% of those supporters within 3 years. Well, why would that happen? Well, this is why it happens. So we process data for thousands of organizations in the UK. And to give you a shape of what we do, we take information from about 300 different organizations on the whole of the UK population, where they live, where they're moving to, any address changes, telephone changes, email changes. We take all of that in, and then we process that against your charities or your organization's data to make improvements so that you can stay in contact. So you'll see some numbers there. 20% is what we tend to see year on year across all sectors. It does change up and down slightly depending on the demographics of the individuals that you work with. It comes from people moving house, that's on the up. 11% is what we see at the moment. Some research bodies are saying that that could double by 2030. I don't personally see it, but that's what they're saying. Job changes, you might well think, well, why would it matter to us if people change their jobs? Because we tend to capture their personal information when they give it. Well, just think about when you provide your information, more and more individuals now provide their business email or their business telephone number. And obviously you don't take that with you as you change jobs. So in the UK, there's 14% job-to-job changes we see from personnel today. And then, of course, mortality, which we probably won't talk about in too much detail now, but that tends to be a static number of just under 1%. So that's where we get to 20% year on year. So I asked you, what are the implications? What could the impact be to your organization? Matt, if you move it through, there's 3 areas here, and this is what the Direct Marketing Association grouped the impact into. It always used to be revenue. So not for profit, you might see that as voluntary income or individual giving, but the money coming into your organization. And that will be impacted if you can't maintain a relationship with somebody that wants to provide you with money to support the cause that they care about. That will definitely reduce. I'll give you an example. An energy company, which I know is far removed from what you do. We work with an energy provider, and they say that an individual that they have the correct contact details with for is worth £120 more to them per annum. Now, I know that's an energy provider and that's purchasing gas and electricity, but it's an extra 20%. They get an extra 20% income from those that they maintain contact with. Cost is an obvious one. Wasted email, wasted mailing packs, wasted time. So that affects every organization the same. But the number one impact that we're seeing today is all around risk. So KPMG conducted some research recently, and they found that 84% of chief executives are concerned about the information that they are having to make decisions on. So they're making bad decisions because they're making it on bad data. So if you think about some of the decisions that you have to make, many of it might well be around obviously people and finances, but a lot of that actually comes from the supporter database. How many supporters have you got? What's the average value per supporter? How many supporters could you reach out to tomorrow if you really needed to? How does that change compared to last year? So that's what we're starting to see. And then, of course, obviously, risk with compliance. And I'm sure you read just as much as we do about everything that's coming from the ICO and the fines and the distraction of having to deal with subject access requests and a potential audit from the ICO. Matt, if you could advance through, please. We're going to go into this in a lot more detail tomorrow, and I'm going to be joined by a chap, one of our colleagues, Rob Frost, who used to manage the database management team at Oxfam and for a number of years, and he's going to be sharing with you everything that we're seeing from organizations to address this data decay problem to try to maintain contact with customers, citizens, or supporters. But there was 2 points that I wanted to raise. The first one, and it is so important, is that what we're seeing is organizations that are making the greatest strides in this area are those that actually make data quality a board level issue. And they view data as an asset in the way that we view all other assets in a business and give it the attention that it needs. And then when it's a board level priority, that permeates all throughout the organization, and we become a culture of, or data quality becomes an instrumental part of our culture. So first point, a board level initiative. The second point is set objectives, measure, measure, measure. What gets measured gets done. And what we're seeing is all of the organizations that are really making strides, and let's not forget, individuals do benefit from this as well, are setting clear objectives that are communicated right throughout the business and then measuring against them on a monthly basis. I won't talk through the other points now. Matt, if you just advance the slide again, please. This is the sort of dashboard that we're seeing organizations start to create, and we feed into this with some of the reports that we provide to them. So I'm not going to go through all of it, but the first thing is when you look at what the ICO say, any personal information you hold needs to be up to date and accurate and remedied where not. Well, what does up to date and accurate mean? That there is no definition of it. So how can you feel confident if what you're doing would satisfy the ICO or whether it wouldn't? Well, what we provide to everybody that uses our service is a benchmark score where anonymously we present to them where they sit on a league table of all the different businesses that we process data for. So if you're in the top 10%, brilliant, keep doing what you're doing, document what you're doing, make sure you're aware of what you're doing and keep doing it. If you're in the bottom 10%, then maybe you need to either implement or change the processes because there could be issues there on the horizon. So we provide that, and people look at, like I said, how many supporters could we reach tomorrow if we needed to? What is the value of our database? What's the average lifetime value? How many of our supporters or event entrants or activists can we contact by different channel? And they measure this and they measure it on a monthly basis. If you could advance it again, please, Matt. I'm conscious that my time is almost up. So I talked just shortly there about how we provide benchmarks where, for instance, an energy business could see whether they are at the top of the league table or the bottom when they're compared to financial services businesses or retail. Well, that's quite useful. But for you guys, what we spoke to our analysts back at the office, and what they're going to do is actually build an Akivo member league table where, like, it'll still be anonymous, but you can actually see against your peers how your data quality matches up against everybody, all the other the members. So we'll be reaching out to you all to explain exactly what that looks like, and we'll be talking about it in a bit more detail tomorrow on how you can get that. It's a free of charge service that we're going to provide to you as part of the Akivo membership, and we do think it could provide you with a lot of value and an awful lot of comfort, especially if you're at the top. I've got one slide. It's probably there's an example. Actually, just move through that, please, Matt. The final slide. These are some other tips and tricks that we're going to be talking about tomorrow, and Rob will be sharing his experience of having worked in a charity and trying to implement a lot of these processes. So I think that's me done. If I was to just mention my favorite new person, Jeff Morgan again, he talked about the global happiness score, which I thought was fascinating, and the biggest impact on whether you're at the top of or the bottom of that happiness score is whether you know that you've got a friend or a relative to rely on if needed. Well, I know it's going to sound cheesy, but if you need to rely on somebody around this issue, that's Locate, and we are here to you. But back to you, Matt, or